Hi, I'm Dr. Rod Shaw of Math Plus Academy, and this math treat is called Square Takeaway. It's from the book Thinking Mathematically by John Mason, one of my favorite books on problem solving. I actually have not fully explored this problem, but it sounds really cool. Start with a rectangular piece of paper. In my case, I have an 8.5 inch by 11 inch piece of paper. And what we're going to do is take away squares. So we're going to try and cut out the largest possible square from this piece of paper. Now I think that square could be sort of the top portion of this piece of paper. I guess if this is 8.5, I would go 8.5 inches down this way, make a line and cut. In this case, I can also just do a clever little 45-degree fold right here. So I'll do that. If you're doing this at home, you want to be as accurate as possible. I'm going to try and do this as best I can up here on the screen. So I folded it to reveal that little square there, and I'm going to cut across this piece just like this, as accurately as I can. There we go. And now I have the square, the large square, 8.5 by 8.5 that I've removed, and this leftover piece, which I guess is 8.5 inches wide, and it was 11 inches tall. 8.5 minus 11, I think it's 2.5 by 8.5, maybe? I don't know. That's for you to figure out. So now I have this leftover piece. It's also a rectangle. I'm going to do the same thing again. So what is the largest square I can take out of this? I think there's like a square right here that I could take out. So I'll do this little fancy little fold again. That'll give me a little bit of a square line there, and I can cut. There we go. I've cut out yet another square, and I'm left with this rectangle. And I'm going to repeat this forever until there's nothing left. So my question, or a question for you, is given any size rectangle that you start with, what are all the things that can happen? How many squares will you get? How many squares of the same size? Well, I just got 2 of these. How many squares of the same size will you get? Looks like I might get a third one out of this leftover rectangle. Let me do that. How many pieces will you end up cutting? Now I've cut out, as I can see here on the floor, 4 squares, and now I have another rectangle. And then I'm going to cut a square off that. This time I'm just going to eyeball it. There we go. That I think is still maybe a rectangle, so I might have to snip it again and be left with another tiny rectangle. And then how many? What is going to happen here? So the question or questions can be the following. For any size rectangle that you start with, how many squares will you get? How many of each kind of square will you get? What sizes of squares will you get? Will you ever stop cutting, or will you be cutting forever? I don't know. I'm starting to feel like I might be cutting this thing forever. Now, mathematically, we can go forever. In real life, would probably get too small to cut. So we're going to think about the ideal piece of paper like a mathematician would and see how far we can go. So this is a really cool, fun thing to explore. Try some different rectangles, see what you get. If you don't have a lot of paper or don't want to do all this cutting, you might find that if you have some graph paper or some grid paper, or you can print some out, you could just draw a rectangle on there, find the squares, maybe color them in. And that might be a nice way also to keep track of what's going on, because as you can see, I have made a mess of my squares. So it'll be hard for me to keep track of everything that I did. In any case, that is Square Takeaway. As always, just try some things and see how far you can get and have fun playing with the math.